In sports, as in life, greatness often hinges on a delicate balance, a single decision, a fleeting moment, or a stroke of luck that can shape history forever. Today, we step into an alternate reality, a twisted, Stephen King-esque tale where fate rewrites the story of basketball's most celebrated player. This is not the Michael Jordan you know. This is the story of a man burdened by brilliance but trapped in a labyrinth of despair. Gone is the Zen-like guidance of Phil Jackson. Absent is the ever-reliable two-way brilliance of Scottie Pippen. Instead, the Chicago Bulls have Olden Polynice, a serviceable but unspectacular big man, and Doug Collins, a passionate but rigid coach who struggles to unlock Jordan's full potential. This story explores what happens when the greatest player of all time is left to carry an insurmountable weight alone. A career built on ferocious determination and unrivaled skill, yet devoid of the championships that define greatness. Welcome to the chilling tale of Michael Jordan's career from 1990 to 1998. A saga of unfulfilled dreams, haunting failures, and what might have been. The 1990-1991 season began with high expectations for Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Despite leading the league in scoring with an astounding 33 points per game and securing a second-place finish in MVP voting, the Bulls struggled to make the leap to greatness. A 48-34 record reflected the team's reliance on Jordan, but their weaknesses were exposed in the playoffs. Facing the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Bulls were outmuscled. The Jordan rules once again disrupted Chicago's offense, but the real story was the lack of support around their star. Olden Polynice, acquired instead of Scottie Pippen, was no match for Detroit's physicality, allowing Bill Laimbeer and Dennis Rodman to control the boards and dominate in key moments. In Game 5, Jordan's 45-point masterpiece wasn't enough as the Bulls faltered down the stretch, losing 98-94 and watching the Pistons advance yet again. For Jordan, it was another season of personal brilliance without the ultimate reward, a championship.
The 1992-1993 season saw Jordan deliver one of his most heroic performances, earning his third MVP award. He propelled the Bulls to a 47-35 record, averaging 32.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. Yet the playoffs told a familiar tale. However, the Cavaliers were ready to exploit Chicago's deficiencies in the playoffs. Without Pippen's ability to switch onto Mark Price and disrupt Cleveland's pick and roll, Price orchestrated the Cavs' offense with precision. Brad Daugherty dominated the boards, taking advantage of Polynice's inability to rotate quickly. In Game 5 of the second round, Jordan dropped 55 points to force overtime. Cleveland exposed the Bulls' lack of defensive discipline. In the closing seconds, Craig Ehlo cut to the basket for a game-winning layup, sealing the series. For Jordan, it was another year of individual accolades without team success. As Jordan progresses into the 1993-94 season, he grows visibly frustrated with the Bulls' stagnation. Olden Polynice is relegated to the bench as his impact dwindles. The Bulls remain vulnerable against teams with balanced attacks. Averaging 32 points per game, leading the NBA in scoring, and another top-5 finish in the MVP race, the Bulls were only able to attain a 6th seed heading into the playoffs. With Horace Grant leaving for Orlando in the first round, they faced the Indiana Pacers, a team known for their balance and perimeter shooting. Without Pippen to guard Reggie Miller or Phil Jackson's schemes to contain Mark Jackson's tempo, the Pacers exploited Chicago's weaknesses. Miller torched the Bulls for 40 points in Game 4, and in Game 5, Jackson's no-look passes left the Bulls scrambling defensively. With the game tied in the final seconds, Indiana ran a pick and roll that forced Polynice to switch onto Miller. The result was inevitable. Miller drained a three at the buzzer. The Bulls' season ended in heartbreak, with Jordan walking off the court, his legacy under fire.
Michael Jordan states, "Thank you all for coming today. I never thought this moment would come under these circumstances, but here we are. Today, I'm announcing my retirement from the game of basketball, not as a champion, not as someone who accomplished all I set out to achieve, but as a man who gave everything he had to this game and finds that it's time to step away." Jordan continues, "Basketball was my sanctuary, my escape. It gave me purpose, drive, and a platform to inspire others. But over the years, that love has been overshadowed by mistakes I've made and tragedies I've endured. My father's death was the hardest moment of my life. Losing him broke me. And to have his name dragged into rumors tied to my choices off the court has been devastating. I gambled, I competed, and I've paid the price for those decisions." He adds, "To my fans, those who believed in me and stood by me, I am forever grateful. To those who wanted more, I'm sorry I couldn't give you the championships or the legacy you deserved. I poured every ounce of myself into this team. I have no regrets about how hard I fought." Jordan concludes, "But now, it's time for me to step away. Not because I want to, but because I must. I'll always love this game, but it's time for me to find a new purpose." He finishes with these words, "I hope history remembers me, not just for the points I scored or the highlights I gave you, but as someone who played with heart and left everything on the court. No titles, no parades, just a man who loved this game with everything he had." The announcement sent shockwaves through the sports world, but it was far from the end of the story. Even in retirement, Michael Jordan remained a figure of controversy. Whispers of his gambling debts resurfaced, fueled by allegations that his financial entanglements had connections to his father's tragic murder. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch when Jordan was subpoenaed to testify in a high-profile mob trial, further tarnishing his once immaculate image. Adding to the blow, Jordan's ambitions to play professional baseball were rejected by the Chicago White Sox organization. After a brief and lackluster stint in minor league baseball, the Sox chose not to re-sign him to their AAA affiliate, citing his lack of progress as a player and the media circus that followed him. For the first time, the man who had been larger than life was met with rejection at every turn. Despite it all, fans remained hopeful, clinging to the possibility of a return to basketball. The NBA, stagnant without its brightest star, desperately needed Jordan's spark. When Michael Jordan announced his return to the NBA midway through the 1994-1995 season, the world watched with bated breath. His return was electric, highlighted by vintage performances, including a 55-point masterpiece against the Knicks. But the Chicago Bulls were no longer a championship-caliber team. Without Horace Grant to battle inside or Scottie Pippen to stabilize the defense, the Bulls struggled to find consistency. Their aging roster and lack of depth were no match for the modern powerhouses of the Eastern Conference. In regular season matchups against the Orlando Magic, the disparity was clear. Shaquille O'Neal dominated the paint, feasting on mismatches against Olden Polynice, while Penny Hardaway exploited the Bulls' slower backcourt. The Bulls' transition game sputtered. The absence of Horace Grant, now flourishing with the Magic, added insult to injury as he delivered double-doubles against his former team with ease. Despite Jordan's return and his 31.5 points per game, the Bulls could not overcome their deficiencies. A critical late-season loss to the Indiana Pacers sealed their fate, leaving the Bulls on the outside looking in when the playoffs began. For the first time since his rookie year, Michael Jordan watched the postseason from home, his throne as the NBA's king now in serious jeopardy. The 1995-96 season should have marked Michael Jordan's triumphant return to dominance. Instead, it became a season defined by internal discord and unmet expectations. Despite Jordan's extraordinary play, averaging 30.5 points per game, the Chicago Bulls struggled to find cohesion. With a 44-38 record, they barely secured the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The team was in disarray. Years of poor draft decisions had left the roster thin and directionless. Stacey King, once viewed as a promising forward, had failed to develop into the post presence the Bulls desperately needed. Will Perdue, a solid but unspectacular big man, struggled to provide any meaningful resistance against the dominant centers of the era. The Bulls' 1995 first-round pick, Jason Caffey, showed flashes of athleticism but lacked the polish to make an immediate impact. With each passing season, it became increasingly clear that the organization had missed too many opportunities to surround Jordan with the talent he needed. Jordan's intensity on and off the court alienated many of his teammates. Without Phil Jackson's calming influence, Doug Collins lacked the ability to manage Jordan's fiery personality. Tony Kukoc, once heralded as a key piece for the future, became a frequent target of Jordan's criticism. While Kukoc's skill was undeniable, his inconsistency in big moments and his perceived lack of toughness made him a scapegoat for the team's failures. Meanwhile, veterans like Ron Harper and Luke Longley struggled to maintain their confidence under Jordan's relentless scrutiny. In the playoffs, the Miami Heat exposed the Bulls' dysfunction. Alonzo Mourning controlled the paint, and Tim Hardaway's pick-and-roll game shredded Chicago's defense. In Game 5, with the Bulls trailing by 2 in the final seconds, Jordan drove into a collapsing defense, only to miss a contested shot at the rim. The Heat advanced, and the Bulls were left searching for answers once again. The Chicago Bulls were a team teetering on the brink of collapse. Michael Jordan continued to dominate statistically, averaging 29.7 points per game, but the tension within the organization was palpable. Doug Collins, whose fiery personality initially resonated with Jordan, now found himself at odds with his star player. Jordan questioned Collins' ability to implement a winning strategy, while Collins grew increasingly frustrated with Jordan's unwillingness to adapt his game for the betterment of the team. Off the court, whispers of trade demands began to emerge. Rumors swirled that Ron Harper, unhappy with his diminished role and constant criticism, had asked for a trade mid-season. Meanwhile, Kukoc openly hinted at wanting a fresh start elsewhere, citing the relentless pressure of playing alongside Jordan. Paul Anise, long past his prime, struggled to stay on the court, forcing the Bulls to rely on inexperienced players like Jason Caffey and Dickie Simpkins. With little depth and no clear second option, Jordan's heroics were not enough to keep the team competitive in high-stakes matchups. In the playoffs, the Bulls faced the Miami Heat for the second straight year. Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway once again dictated the pace, while Chicago's lack of defensive schemes and offensive variety proved fatal. In the aftermath of another failed season, Jerry Krause began to publicly float the idea of rebuilding the roster. He pointed to the team's aging core and bloated payroll as reasons for the Bulls' struggles. Jordan, hearing these remarks, reportedly confronted Krause directly, demanding better support or a trade. The relationship between the franchise's most iconic player and its architect was at an all-time low. The 1997-1998 season began with turmoil brewing within the Chicago Bulls organization. After years of unmet expectations and mounting frustrations, Doug Collins faced enormous pressure to deliver results. Michael Jordan, still the league's top attraction, carried the team with 28.9 points per game, but the cracks in the franchise's foundation were impossible to ignore. The tension between Collins and Jordan reached a breaking point midway through the season, as reports of shouting matches in practice leaked to the media. By January, the Bulls' record hovered around 500, and the front office made a decisive move. Doug Collins was fired. The announcement came after an embarrassing blowout loss to the New York Knicks, where the team's lack of defensive structure and cohesion was on full display. Assistant coach Frank Hamblin was promoted to interim head coach, but the change did little to stabilize the team. For Jordan, Collins' departure was bittersweet, a sign that the front office recognized the dysfunction but also a reminder of the uncertainty looming over the franchise. Behind closed doors, the Bulls' front office was already planning for the future, and their vision didn't include Michael Jordan. Jerry Krause, enamored with Iowa State head coach Tim Floyd, had long been pushing for a rebuild. With the team's aging core and ballooning salaries, Krause informed Jordan during a mid-season meeting that the organization would not be re-signing him in the offseason. The move sent shockwaves through the basketball world. For Jordan, it was a bitter betrayal, a signal that the franchise he had carried for over a decade was ready to move on. The free agency frenzy of 1998 revolved around one name, Michael Jordan. While many assumed he'd retire, Jordan shocked the league by meeting with teams desperate to claim his services. The New York Knicks, reeling from playoff heartbreak, presented a compelling case. Patrick Ewing was nearing the end of his career, and adding Jordan to a core of Allen Houston and Charles Oakley seemed like the missing piece. But another suitor emerged unexpectedly. In a move that stunned the basketball world, Jordan signed a 2-year deal with the Houston Rockets. Desperate to squeeze one more title out of Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, the Rockets saw Jordan as the final piece to their aging core. With Charles Barkley already in place, the Rockets became a super team built on redemption for 4 legends chasing closure. For Jordan, it was a bold gamble. The 1998-99 season was a whirlwind. At 35, Jordan still showed flashes of brilliance, averaging 25.8 points per game. Paired with Olajuwon's dominance in the paint and Drexler's versatility, the Rockets surged to a 52-18 record in the lockout-shortened season. However, tension simmered beneath the surface. Barkley, ever outspoken, clashed with Jordan over leadership and shot selection. The team's collective age began to show during grueling stretches, but their shared goal of a championship kept them united. In the playoffs, the Rockets faced the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. Tim Duncan and David Robinson's youthful dominance exposed the Rockets' aging roster, but Jordan carried the scoring load. In Game 7, Jordan willed the Rockets to victory, scoring 41 points, including a dagger jumper over Duncan to seal the win. Houston advanced to the finals, setting up a showdown with the New York Knicks. The finals were a battle of the old guard: Jordan versus Ewing, Barkley versus Oakley. For Jordan, it was his last chance to silence critics. The series was a grind, with every game decided in the final minutes. In Game 6, with the Rockets leading 3-2, Jordan delivered a vintage performance, scoring 38 points and hitting a fadeaway to tie the game in the closing seconds. But in a moment no one saw coming, it all fell apart. As Jordan soared for a potential game-winning dunk, His left leg gave out mid-air, sending him crashing to the floor. The arena fell silent as Jordan clutched his knee in agony, unable to continue. The Knicks capitalized, scoring on the ensuing possession to force Game 7. With Jordan sidelined, the Rockets fought valiantly but fell short. Patrick Ewing finally achieved his elusive title, and the Knicks celebrated as Jordan watched from the sidelines, his face a mask of pain and resignation. The injury was severe, a torn ACL. At 36, the prospect of another comeback seemed impossible. For the first time, Michael Jordan had been defeated not by an opponent, but by his own body.
Jordan quietly retired after the 1999 season, never returning to the court. His career, though filled with brilliance, remained incomplete. No championships, no fairy tale ending. Years later, rumors circulated of Jordan training in secret, with sightings of a man in his mid-40s dominating underground basketball games with an eerily familiar fadeaway jumper. For a man who gave everything to the game gave him no closure. Michael Jordan's career ended not with triumph, but with questions about what might have been and whether he ever truly walked away. The greatest player of all time became something more, something unknowable, and maybe that's the way it was always meant to be.